Hello everyone, I am Scott Lowe and I'm sitting down with Mark Cerny, the architect of the PS4. We are on the cusp of the launch of the system. Are you just like elated to just have your baby out the door?
Well, you know, as you were just saying, on Friday, next gen becomes current gen, so I'm pretty stoked.
Yeah. So obviously your role was very much on the internal side, but like how much have you really kind of influenced the overall vision for the larger ecosystem of services and just the overall strategy?
Well, I mean, once the hardware was in the can, we formed a sort of interdisciplinary work group from all sorts of divisions at Sony Computer Entertainment, and also some people at Sony itself, and really started to tackle over the course of a couple months what that larger user experience would be that would surround the games. And so things like the share button came out of those conversations.
And so this is actually probably, I've seen you like around checking out games. You know, this is probably one of the first opportunities to really kind of see them all in one place in a big way. Have you like seen some of these ideas used in ways that you didn't originally think of, like for the intention of like with the use of the light bar and the camera and you know, some of the built-in sensors?
Well, I mean, to be honest, this week is my first chance to spend very much time at all with the games. At the shows, I'm too busy, and then if I'm off visiting a developer, it's not like we're sitting around playing the game, right? We're discussing whatever issue is preventing them from getting their game out at launch. So it's been fun. There's some very nice games out there.
Is there any game kind of surprised you in how they've used it, though? Like, you know, we saw Thief the other day, and they're using the light bar to kind of indicate your like level of visibility, which is
that's fun.
Yeah, it was you know, so there's some just kind of unique, creative ways that we never thought of when we thought light bar.
Well, I guess the biggest thing is I didn't expect that much use of compute. At launch, but Resogun is in fact using the GPU to drive more than just the graphics of the game. I think a lot of the motion of those objects, it's all done with voxels, right? So a lot of the motion of those objects is also being done by the GPU.
Yeah, and resolution has become a bit of a hot topic as of late, and you know, the PS4 by and large has a lot of 1080p titles, but you know, there's still many developers below that. Do you think that will ever become the standard? You know, as the life cycle of the system goes on, will people become more and more optimized, or will there still be that struggle?
I mean, people will get better at using the hardware, and so I think we'll see a steady improvement in frame rates and resolutions, but we really do not dictate to the game creators about what sort of experience they need to create. So if their vision has to do with incredibly detailed graphics that perhaps can't be done at 60 hertz or 1080p, that's perfectly fine. That's what they want to make.
But do you see that as being like, as time goes on, like developers will kind of learn to like unlock that power, like as you know they kind of learn to optimize?
Oh, definitely. I mean, we're going to see every year that goes by advances in usage of the hardware. In fact, right now, each month that goes by, we are seeing advances in usage. So, for example, the NAC demo that's in the stores, the frame rate was improved since then for Gold Master, and then for the day one patch, it's been improved again, and now we're debating whether or not, as we learn still more, whether or not we might do a day two patch and bump it up still further.
And obviously remote play and the power of Gaikai is kind of going to become more and more evident as time goes on, and this was this week was our first opportunity to see remote play used in a kind of a broad sense with Need for Speed Rivals and Battlefield 4. But it seems to be that there's still kind of a struggle with latency there. Do you ever see that as becoming like less and less of an issue where it'll actually become like the dominant form?
Well, I mean, if we're talking about remote play on Vita, that's done with a direct Wi-Fi link, and the latency is very low. It's all in the house. Once you get out of the house, there will be some latency. We have a lot of techniques to combat that, but it is just part of that cloud gaming technology that there will be a bit of latency there. And I think really ultimately it's going to be that some games work really well in that kind of context and some games work less well. I mean, if you're playing a Twitch fighter or a racing game, you might not want to be doing that as cloud gaming. But a lot of the games will work very well that way.
And then, you know, the shift towards digital is becoming more and more apparent, not only with the strides the PSN store is making in terms of all of the available content day one available digitally, but it seems like they're kind of, the digital idea is a little at odds with the kind of the next generation where it's file sizes are larger than ever, bandwidth and broadband is still very slow to grow in a lot of areas. Do you think there will always be a need for physical media?
Well, I don't think physical media is going to go away anytime soon. I mean, digital is great if you have a good internet connection, a nice connection, and you can be up and playing a lot of these games in less than an hour, and you'll stay ahead of the download. The download will stay ahead of you as long as you're playing the game. So you'll never wait for it. But for those people who don't have a fast connection, or some people aren't even connected to the internet, I think there's definitely a place for physical media.
And with the switch to x86, obviously, puts it more in line with PCs and therefore like more scalable and kind of easily accessible for developers. Do you see that as an opportunity to potentially in the future, iterate on the hardware in like a less kind of 10-year like drastic leap kind of fashion, because that's the traditional model for consoles.
Yeah. So we haven't even launched this one yet, and you're talking about the next one. I mean, the answer is I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, the only constant is change, right?
Yeah.
But we've done awfully well with this model where we make the box and it doesn't change for a while.
Yeah. And up until now, or prior to the unveiling of both of the current, or well, next gen, but soon to be current gen consoles, there was a lot of talk about the end of traditional consoles as we know it, and the PS4 kind of flies in the face of that a little bit.
So I mean, I remember 2 years ago, the analysts were saying, "Oh, the console market is dead," even a year ago, and February, it was really a mixed reaction. Is some people thought, "Wow, this is nice that there are consoles," and some people thought, "Why are you launching a console when clearly that whole market is now history? It's gone." But by E3, it was clear that people really did want consoles still, and then Grand Theft Auto selling what $1 billion worth of games in 3 days, I think really has also helped convince people that yes, there is a business there. People like their consoles.
And I mean, obviously Sony's making a pretty strong stand with the amount of entertainment services that are already available, but how do you see the console kind of evolving over the next 5 or 10 years? Is it purely just the software side and developers really kind of getting a sense of how to maximize the hardware? Do you think we'll see this thing get smaller? Which I find hard to believe, considering how small it is to begin with.
Yeah, it is amazingly small. Just looking around in this room,
Yeah.
Hard to believe that is the size of our launch console.
Yeah.
So the services will evolve. At the same time, we're not quite sure what direction that will happen in. If you look at PlayStation 3, at the start of that life cycle, the games basically didn't have downloadable content. You were barely on the internet when PS3 launched in 2006. And just in the last 7 years, this has all transformed beyond belief. I mean, I think the feature set we have right now for PlayStation 4 is pretty good for 2013, but it's also clear that for 2015, 2017, we need to be doing some different things. We're just not sure what those are yet.
Yeah. Well, and now that the console is here, what's next for you? Are you going to continue to kind of focus on the platform and evolve it in ways, or will you move on to more software projects?
Well, I mean, the hardware work never quite ends because first you make a console and then you have to work on making it cheaper, and there's also evangelism and working with the developers to get their titles really tuned into what the hardware can do. I mean, at the same time, I was chosen as lead architect because I'm a game developer, and I've been spending a third of my time, if that, on games. And I think from next year I'm really going to get back to my gaming roots a bit.
Awesome. Well, thank you for taking the time with us.
Thank
I
you.
really appreciate it. For all things PlayStation 4, stay locked to IGN.com.